Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Safety Systems. Folks, I believe in Safety Systems. I know all the folks over there that work there, from the owner on down the line. They've been in my house. They've done great work at great price, all on my schedule. Call them for security or entertainment needs, commercial or residential work. Safety Systems. This is our quick slant segment. Everyone gets about 30 seconds to sound off on a different topic of my choosing. Bob, we spoke yesterday, and you said you don't think the special team units are quite as good as they were last year.
No, you're not getting the big returns that you did last year, either in the punts or in the kickoffs. And there's a couple of games last year that the return game set you up. Even in a couple of the games you lost, it was the return games that set you up. You're not getting those plays this year. On the other side, though, give them credit. They are covering very well. But you're not seeing the kind of quality, you're not even seeing as good a punting as what you saw last year.
Was anyone evil before the season and suggested that you can't just count on the special teams to be the same?
Exactly.
Yes. I think it was you, but you're
Thank
always
you.
evil.
I had to, exactly. All right, here we go. Evil wins sometimes. All right, Will Overstreet, you said this earlier this year, but you said it earlier this show.
Exactly.
Show people what you're talking about very quickly. Hurd, Kamara.
Yep.
I got to get his name right. He pronounces it Kamara.
Right. So basically what we're talking about earlier is how do we get the best players on the field? You do that by getting the two backs in at the same time. You saw this play in the first play where Hurd actually led for Kamara to open up a big run. Another way to do this, to really see what the defense is trying to do, is to take somebody like Kamara and motion him out. What does the defense have to do? The linebacker either has to come out here, or you have to admit and pull your strong safety down to cover a guy like that. If the linebacker covers him, guess what? My number one read option if we're in the pass is that linebacker versus Kamara, because that's a pretty good matchup for us. If they pull the strong safety down or the safety down, all of a sudden you kind of know what the coverage is. They're probably going to be running cover one. They only have one person over the top. So now guess what? We go after the big wide receivers and throw them those 50-50 balls and see if we can beat them. Gives you a lot of options.
Can you understand why you're not seeing more of this? Is that your number one frustration offensively?
My number one frustration is you can't get the three best players on the field at the same time and figure out plays to get them more often, to get them the ball and win. You're sticking with your system that has three wide receivers on the field. You have two wide receivers that can really compete. Get your other running back on the field to get the best players on the field. That's my biggest complaint.
Jimmy Himes, Butch Jones teams have always been pretty disciplined on and off the field, but yesterday, 9 penalties, 5 fumbles. On the season, 11 fumbles. Only lost 1, but 11 times they put the ball on the ground. Is this a blip or a concern about discipline?
A huge concern to me, and you're pretty fortunate to recover all 5 of your fumbles. You're pretty fortunate to get all of Virginia Tech's too. But the other thing on the penalties, Tennessee had 9 penalties that were assessed. Twice they had 2 penalties on the same play. They had another penalty nullified. That's 12 penalties. That's far too many. This team is not good enough to overcome those kind of mistakes.
And they were penalties that kept drives alive, too.
Yeah, 3 times.
Yeah.
Sure did. Led to 13
Chuck,
points.
what is the bigger shock at the quarter pole of the season? The fact that the offensive line has allowed 7 sacks already, that's a worse pace than last year, or the fact that the defensive line, so hyped, only has 3 sacks so far?
Well, I mean, the temptation there is to say the defense not only having 3 sacks, but look how much Derek Barnett affected the play yesterday, the game, without getting a sack because he had so many quarterback hits and hurries. It's the offensive line giving up 7 sacks because that number is at least twice as high in terms of how many times Josh Dobbs has had to run for his life.
I expected the offensive line to be a little less than the defensive line, so I'm surprised by your answer. That's why we have the show, and that's why I pay him the big bucks. Chuck Cavaleras. Matter of fact, we pay him because he's pretty good at picking games, too, at least in comparison to Sterling. When we come back, Chuck versus Pearl, Tennessee, Florida. Where are these guys going to go? Come on back on the Sports Source.